Water? I could see it to your phone. Push out the peanut butter.
Yeah, it's good, yeah.
Evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the joint meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and the Sewer Authority for Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. As always, we're joined, some telephonically and some, this is a team, right?
Teams, yes.
And some via Teams. So I'd ask all those who are joining electronically to mute your devices when you're not speaking, and when you do speak, to state your name for clarity of the record. All right, agenda item 2 will be a 15-minute comment period. Are there any members of the public here that would like to speak? Is anybody okay? If people do show up, we can always reopen agenda item 2. All right, agenda item 3 is approval of the minutes of the August 20th, 2024 meeting, which was in your board package for review. I assume everyone had a chance to review it, and if you have, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion, but there are a couple of spelling errors.
Okay.
First, it's my last name with no S in it.
That's my fault.
That's all right. And I think there's 2 D's in Tucker Braddock's last,
Okay,
just.
thank you.
So I'll make that motion that we approve.
Thank you, Bill. Wait a second.
Oh, I'll second.
Oh, thanks, Bob. All right, I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion concerning the minutes? Here's the grapevine, there's a couple of spelling mistakes in the minutes. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. The minutes are approved as amended by Bill's comments.
Does he vote out yes, right?
Yeah.
No, Sean, somebody just joined. Sean just joined. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
The minutes reflect that Sean has joined us at 6:03. All right. Okay, and item 4, we have the financials, leadership, and the strategic. I'll just go in order. We have 3 information packets were provided in our board information. The first is the financials. Are there any questions or comments on the financials that were provided? I didn't have them. All right. Are there any questions or comments concerning the leadership team template?
Second.
I didn't have any real questions. I did notice that there were at least 4 or 5 listings under cannabis.
Yeah,
I thought we had 2 cannabis growers and 1 dispenser. It seems like now it's proliferating.
Yeah. Well,
Everybody lives on their base.
So 8th Street is the one that's the front runner, and they've been waiting for some electric equipment to get started. They were supposed to be started a long time. 4th Street kind of went away, now they're back again. We also have somebody looking over at the Nippy's Field area. We have somebody looking over at the area near across from the golf course at the driving range. And we've got somebody looking at either Stonington Road or the Aqua Industrial Center.
so did you notice on I thought that one.
They're pretty much pulled out of there, but they're looking at relocating in the new business park, north, Aqua Industrial Center.
And one of the things I was wondering, any updates on the water line extension in Boswell? I don't know if Larry.
So that's where Larry is this evening.
Oh, he is, oh.
Okay, so we were scheduled for 2 different meetings with the Board of Selectmen of Boswell where I was going to attend. They canceled both those meetings, schedule a meeting for tonight. So Larry Tag, you're in, he's down in Boswell. So he'll be discussing the project with them. We're gonna have to get an extension if they don't go to a referendum and approve that project to move forward with drinking water state revolving fund. They also have options of using rural water money to do that as well. So that's where Larry's gonna go, talk about what we need, if they're gonna proceed with us, or if they choose to go with the USDA money, they may be able to get better financing for a longer time, but that's something where they would own the pipe and they would give it to us after it's paid off for $1. If we get it, we own the pipe. If we get the drinking water state revolving fund, we apply for it, and we have to have an agreement from the town to pay us for it.
Is there a meter installed at the town line, or how is that? If you keep.
For water?
Yeah.
There would be the water customers would be ours. There would be a meter for sewer that meters the entire town's sewer. Because that also captures infiltration or any other issues. So that's why we do it that way. It's different with water and sewer.
And how about Browning Road? That seemed to stop 2 weeks ago,
All right, Lisa, do you have an update on the Browning Road water?
only because I drive by there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We
going
can,
back,
we can get that for you.
Yeah, that's all right, just, yeah.
just to go back to cannabis, I don't know if this is gonna have any impact on anything in Norwich or anywhere else. But the comptroller has just come out with a 16-page report that is highly critical of the folks in the state government who are running the cannabis program. And who knows what's gonna happen.
But the report is not a surprise to people who have been trying to figure out the regulations and how to get the right path and move forward. We sponsored several events where we had speakers come in and talk about it, and working closely with Kevin at NCDC, Kevin Brown. The rules have changed, but it's not easy for people to get these licenses and get them started.
Then in terms of the cybersecurity plan, that's gonna be completed by December 31st. Or was it completed by December 21st? There isn't any oversight of the reservoirs at all, in terms of, protecting it for people.
That does not include physical security at the reservoirs, but we do have water supply plans address those types of measures, yes.
And how about substations, anything with cybersecurity in them?
That's our NERC SIP requirements, and that's under Eric's plans.
Sorry, I highlighted in yellow for some reason. I think that's about it. You're gonna talk a little bit about PFAS and the drill wall.
For the well, that'll be a presentation, and Lisa Morrison will be providing with.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And lastly, the strategic plan dashboard, I think you had walked through, Bill.
Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments on the strategic plan dashboard?
Well, I mean, what we've got there is last 3 years, I guess it is, strategic plan, which is a good thing for reference, but the key is we supposedly are gonna be starting discussions on Monday at 2:00 on the new strategic plan. And I don't know, I mean, I know we knew we were gonna do it, it came as a little surprise to me, and I haven't thought a lot about it, but it should be interesting.
And I'll have a little update on what we're gonna be doing Monday and the opportunities to provide input in addition to that meeting. So.
Okay, all right. All that being said, then we'll move on to the financial and audit subcommittee update. And Chris, who would you like, how would that be?
That would be Mike.
Michael, are you on?
He is.
Yes, I don't have any report.
Right, well, I can give a high level overview of what we did. So we met on September 10th. We provided 3 presentations. Brett and Terry provided overview of how our PPA, PGA, and CMAQ trust funds are managed and the role they play in helping us keep our energy rates as stable and as possible, as long as possible. Mary Lou gave an update on our process for managing seasonal disconnections and reconnections for natural gas, electric, and water customers. And in that presentation, some additional questions were asked about regional competitiveness and what other utilities do. Mary Lou will be providing that information today. And then Laura explained the process that's underway for getting our electric division a financial rating we can go out with bonding for. The plan is to be able to float revenue bonds and provide investment for our infrastructure, for substations in our 34-5 system, and some of our transmission upgrades that are needed. So she presented that. There'll be more policies coming in front of the board and the Finance and Audit Committee meeting in the November time.
Okay, Ben?
So I have a quick question, and I'm sure I asked this, and Laura probably gave a great explanation, but I don't remember it, so.
Okay.
We've done revenue bond in the past. Gone to the city council has approved some bonds, like the gas extension, that was a general obligation bond. But they approved other bonds that were revenue bonds. Which means they didn't have to come up with any of the money, it came out of our revenue. But we all did that under the city rating. What are we doing differently this time?
So this will allow us to not have to go out for referendum for the borrowing. That's important. We did that for the gas bonds. We don't have to do it for water and sewer, drinking water state revolving fund, and clean water revolving fund. If we go out and we get bond rated, we can do this with city councils, the majority, and board.
So you're telling me we have never before done a revenue bond without our own rating, but using the city's rating for electric or forget.
Well, we have to go out for referendum if we do that. That's the difference, correct, Laura?
So we have never floated revenue bonds for the electric division. Revenue bonds that we float for water and sewer are under clean water and drinking water. It's all part of the state program. And it's all part of the process where the state is the only customer. They don't actually get marketed and sold to their normal bond market.
Oh, okay.
We will be rated in the electric division, and it will be a normal bond sale to, the market, as opposed to this sort of silo that clean water and drinking water live in. So it's a little bit different situation for electric than it is water and sewer. Fortunately, electric doesn't have a program like water and sewer do, and couldn't tap into something like we have for the gas bonds. So revenue bonds are the most cost-effective way to go, allows us to best control over the process, and gives us the opportunity to get the resources we need to invest in the infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll be asking that every week.
All right, thank you, Robert. All right, if there's no other questions or comments on the financial and audit subcommittee update, we'll move on to the NEPA update that Sean went to. Sean, what can you tell us about the conference that was held last month?
Give me 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Give me 1 second, okay? So my update, obviously, most of you guys been to New Hampshire before, so obviously, it's no surprise, but it was very interesting. A lot of their presentations and the conferences are a great way to learn about and network from different people from different municipalities and different utilities to see the way, that they're moving in regards to some programs that they might have, and some special opportunities too to see new vendors and things like that. So it was very eye-opening for me to help increase my knowledge in regards to how different municipalities operate, and also to meet some new, friends, peers, and coworkers. This year, I would say that there was a lot of different coverage topics in regards to regulatory and legislative issues. Obviously, with the turnover in presidency coming, there's a lot of different ways that people are strategically trying to position themselves with some of the trends, you know, depending on who becomes president and what programs they support or with different initiatives and different lobbyists and things like that. So it was interesting to see those presentations of how things go. And also a lot of the technology and innovation that's coming this way in regards to the industry and what other municipalities are using for technology. It was interesting to see as well too. And obviously the most important thing is customer service and engagement, you know, with the community was ways and that other municipalities are doing, the way that they're connecting and to their customers and promoting their services was some of the presentations. And then also sustainability and environmental stewardship was probably one of the top ones, you know, obviously with the initiative to go net zero, you know, at whatever deadline it was, 2040 or whatever the case may be. It was good to see how also other municipalities and other programs that are non-municipalities are trying to go net zero in regards to reduction, but also I enjoy spending time, you know, with Chris and Jeff and, you know, talking about different, you know, variety of topics, but also looking forward to what's ahead next year, you know, for us in the year 2025. So that's kind of my overview of the report. If you want more details, I can share those with you a little bit later as well, too.
Okay, thank you. The PPA chart. Is that Chris?
So I'll discuss that.
Okay.
So we had a presentation on the PPA and PGA in the Finance and Audit Subcommittee on September 10th. And we also provided that presentation in my weekly board update to the entire board on September 13th. ZAP is keeping the PPA and PGA at the same rates through the springtime. And we're going to continue to monitor monthly. And if anything major happens, we will report back if there are any changes needed. But right now, it looks like we are capturing the right amounts for PPA and PGA through the spring. So no changes are needed.
Okay. Second is the sewer rates.
Right, for the sewer rates, we presented in the June meeting with our rate consultants. We discussed again and held a public hearing in the August board meeting. And we just want to know if there's any additional discussion needed before we hold a vote later in the meeting.
And also, Robert, you okay?
Oh, yeah, I mean, essentially, I don't know that we have any option. I mean, and I'm not being critical, but we environmentally have to rebuild the sewer plant, and legally we have to rebuild it, and we have to pay for it. So, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we squeezed it down from a 5-year to 4-year base, but that was the cost for the increased number that we looked at last time we talked, but the dollar value hasn't changed.
Nope.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue annually to review because we don't know the pace of which Nickerson is going to complete the project, how fast they're going to spend it. We'll have Matt Ross give us a nice update a little later as a project manager. He's the best to give the most details of that. And we're also looking at, you know, if there's any additional funding we get from the legislative session this year, and if there's anything we can get for additional money from the local communities who are wanting to partner with us and use our sewer plant. So either one will impact rates, and we're going to do our best to pursue those in the next year.
have we had any complaints at this point, or do we anticipate any from businesses that use a significant amount of sewer service as opposed to, you know, just a single family?
We posted the rates, we've had the public hearing, and it's, you know, I think a lot more communication is going to go out after the vote tonight. And we are, you know, for our large customers, we have good communication, and we'll have, you know, we'll do rate comparisons. And for the smaller ones, it's going to be more of a generic outreach.
Yeah.
Okay, next is the efficiency charges.
So essentially, that's the same thing I just discussed. We've discussed those a few times. And just want to know if we need to revisit anything tonight before the board has a vote on that.
Okay. Okay, and then next is the 2025 to 2028 strategic plan. So we're having a meeting on Monday, Chris, is that right?
Yes. And the purpose of the initial meeting is to get a perspective on where things stand now and where we want to go in the next 3 to 5 years. So it's kicking off that process. We'll start with an overview of industry trends with, we're bringing in Mike Highland, the Executive Director of NEPA. And then we'll go through essentially what our needs, expectations, and strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats on Monday. So just at a high level, what's going on in the energy world and, what do we need to address in the next 3 to 5 years. After this, Jackson and Wagner will be reaching out to key members of leadership, key members of the board, or all the members of the board, and trying to get some more dialogue going of what needs to be done. And then we'll start doing, rolling up our sleeves and start putting together a plan. So we expect over the next 3 months to really get moving. The plan is to have this in place for next spring.
Chris, I don't know if we want to do this or not, but one of the things that I disliked at the outset when we did the strategic plan before, and then I came to really value, was that the strategic plan staffer or consultant met separately with the board and with staff. And you sort of we both put together a priority list. And then there was a joint meeting where we shared the priority lists, and the staff had, this is number 1, and we added number 7, and we talked about it and said, gee, where do you think it ought? I thought that turned out to be very effective. And I don't know if we're going to do something like that, but.
So not in week 1, obviously.
Well, yeah.
But that is something that, she's looking for input from board, she's looking for input from staff, and she is trying to basically get us all focused in on what we need in that immediate future.
And when we compare all of that, I thought the board was great and the staff was great, and we weren't overly proprietary, So this is what we think, this is what we think, and we reached an agreement. And I think that was really very effective.
I think if we're doing a good job at our meetings, at least you're apprised of the topics we're going to be talking about. Maybe not all as much detail as our staff, obviously, but I don't think there's going to be much that comes out of strategic planning that is not going to be a surprise. We may add more focus or remove focus from something that maybe we, in the last plan is not as important because, the environment changes. But, I think as Sean said, and, as you're listening to what happened up in NEPA, there's a lot of uncertainty on how much green is going to be going after the next election. And, it's a change of leadership guarantee, right? And either way is going to be some shift, not 180, but some shift either way, more or less.
Less and less.
Or less and less.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you, Chris. All right, we have 4 presentations this evening. And the first one is from Mary Lou on the seasonal disconnect charges.
Everybody passes out before you get us talking.
This should be pretty quick.
Yeah.
We provided an overview of the seasonal disconnect, the reconnect, fee structures. And we were asked to follow up on looking at other utilities and how they perform in doing their seasonal disconnect. So I provided a spreadsheet or a matrix that we looked at Groton, South Norwalk, Wallingford, 3rd Tax District or TDD, Middleborough, and Holyoke. I'm going to walk through a little bit. So the electric water space, Groton, on the disconnect charges, there aren't any, but they do what they call a new customer account on any reconnection. That's $25 per meter, and $85 for same day turn on and $225 for after hours. When I had the conversation with them, they had stated that they just 2 days prior were having this conversation around seasonal disconnects. And they asked me for our information on our analysis to see how it fars with theirs, because they're having issues in this space. So they're reevaluating them. In this new space, they do not have any disconnect or reconnect charges. They do remote disconnect and reconnects, and they have very few seasonal disconnects. And it has to do with their customer environment. Wallingford, they don't do any for electric, but for water, they allow one on and off cycle per year because of a lot of their water meters not in pits. On the reconnect charges, they have $80 for normal hours, $140 for after hours, and once again, the water, they get one turn on cycle. And once again, they have stated very few seasonal disconnects. They're not stating the volumes, and if you look on the electric and water, even on our side, we don't see the volumes like we do in the gas space. TDD, same thing, no charges and very few. In the gas and electric space, Middleborough and Holyoke, we took a look at. Middleborough, I had a lengthy conversation. Right now, they do a $35 per meter on a disconnect and a $35 per meter on a reconnect. They are also evaluating their fee structures in the seasonal space. They're finding that they're getting more volume. Holyoke, disconnect charges or non-reconnect charges, they're around $30, but they only have a handful of customers per year.
What is our disconnect proposed?
Excuse me?
What is our proposed disconnect?
We're looking to discourage our customers, and especially in the gas space.
Yeah.
So we're looking at $125 for a disconnect
Yeah.
and $125 for a reconnect plus the meter charges.
That's a big difference.
And we're hoping to discourage. In summary, in the electric and water space, what we've seen overall in having these conversations is there's very few seasonal disconnects in the electric and water space. It's consistent across the 6 utilities. Groton and Middleborough are evaluating seasonal disconnects as in that electric space as well. In the gas space, Middleborough is evaluating seasonal disconnects as well as Holyoke has experienced just a handful and don't feel a need to take a look at it. A lot of the conversation also went around that they're not measuring seasonals like we are. We measure them to ensure that that disconnect, reconnect, that we understand who those customers are.
Thank you for getting
What
it.
does that mean?
So when a customer comes in and asks for a disconnect,
Yeah.
there's a series of questions and so forth, and they're usually reoccurring customers. So we have a drop down that literally states that it's a seasonal disconnect and that it's going to be reconnected within the 12-month period.
Okay.
So we keep track of that. A lot of what we found, especially when I talked to Groton, they don't measure that or track it through metrics. So they get disconnects, but they haven't gone and looked at all of their what they call seasonals, people that are disconnecting and reconnecting within a 12-month period in same ownership. The reasons.
Well, I understand the distinction. I'm trying to understand why it is material for us. I mean, if somebody disconnects and then reconnects they go to Florida or whatever, why is that better or worse than if they just disconnect and somebody else comes in and reconnects or whatever?
So when you look at our meter charges,
Yeah,
the service remains, right? The meter remains. So when we set our rates, we do that over a 12-month period. That recovers our meter reader, the meter itself, the service, you name it.
Yep.
What they're basically doing, they can turn their appliance off and leave, so there's no safety issue. What they're doing is discontinuing the meter, so they don't have to pay the meter charge for the summer 6 or 7 months. Then they wait until the first morning, it's 25 degrees and they don't have any heat. And they call in, I need my service on immediately. And so our field service department, they'll work at 8, 9, sometimes 10 o'clock at night for 2 weeks when it gets cold, turning all these services back on. The only practical use of being a repeat on and off is to avoid that meter charge. We're not,
What is the meter charge, give or take?
It comes to, for a 7-month period, we said it was like $175 for a 7-month period.
Okay.
So it ranges between, I would say, $22 and $35.
So what's it, SNU can do it remotely, can we do remotely? with-
On electric, not gas.
Not the gas, yeah.
The
Correct.
gas is really the driver here.
Is it?
I mean, we want to be across the board the same, but the gas is the big driver.
Yeah, you have to, clock the meter, which is making sure there's no leaks. Then you have to, purge all the gas to every appliance. And sometimes that requires running plumbing outside to get that gas out of the house. Then you have to relight every equipment, and then you gotta check for accurate, that it's all operating correctly. It's not a 5-minute thing, it's, you're out there for hours, sometimes many hours.
Mhm.
So if you could do the gas remotely, whatever, just turn off the gas, you still have to go and do all the work with the appliances, get them home?
Yes,
Wow, okay.
because once you shut it off outside, those lines are full of air. You gotta get 100% gas before the appliances will work, so, and it's, that's where you gotta purge the gas out from inside a home to outside.
So none of the Connecticut utilities have gas.
No,
No,
Apparently Marlboro and Holyoke do.
correct.
Yeah, those are both in Mass though, right?
yeah, there's only 4 municipals in Mass,
Yeah.
and the other 2 did not respond when we asked them questions.
I called Chicopee.
Westfield,
Chicopee now, so, yes.
Wakefield.
now,
What does it cost us on a yearly basis to do this work? I think it was 200.
$260,000 a year. We have about 600 million hours.
And then the lost revenue is another 250.
We haven't even
It's
counted
about
that.
$500,000 total financial impact.
We just want to discourage customers. And that's, and in all honesty, the gas side of the house, there's a safety issue with that as well, to making sure.
It's difficult from a staffing point of view too, because now the Board of Ed, they're starting their goes up, they're having issues, and then we're trying to pull staff from there to turn people on, and you almost carry, creates a lot of overtime and stress.
Well, that's interesting. Does the Board of Education shut off their meters? No. Okay.
a lot of customers need it for hot water as well as heat, so it's on for the whole year. And then when you look at Groton, who is looking at these charges as well, Groton has a lot of summer cottage type issues. That's why they're also looking at it, because it is an impact on them doing electric turn-offs and water turn-offs.
Middleborough as well, and they had a change in the GM, so, he's prioritizing, but that's one on his list to look at all of his fee structures, and that's one of his priorities.
This is, just for me, I think this is interesting, and I understand the impact on NPU and how we need to mitigate that, but on the other hand, sounds like we're way above the market,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
Well, we already have a turn on, turn off fee for turning meters on and off if someone is, not turn off, but
Yeah.
turn on fee. If someone doesn't pay their bill and wants to get turned back on after hours. This is strictly for seasonal, just to discourage the practice.
Yeah.
Because if we're not collecting $500,000 in revenue a year, someone else paying it has to, the rate's gonna
Yeah, I
have to.
understand.
Right, so it's the flip side of the coin, it's not the people who are destitute, it's the people that can afford a second home, so they can.
Correct.
Correct to say.
Meter charges.
Like you say, if 500K is not being paid by them, then it goes back to everybody else, including the people who are least able to pay.
Because when you your cost of service, you're rolling in the revenues, what you collected on the rates that you had, the revenues aren't matching what you thought they were, why? So then you raise rates.
And when $500,000 is, that's a few bodies in that department, that.
Okay, well, thank you, Mary Lou. Are there any questions? Additional questions? Okay, thank you. Illuminating, all right. All right, next up, we have many drinking water state revolving fund projects to be discussed, and that would be Alyssa.
There's only three. Only three, right?
Sit here. So we have three projects that we're looking at. Now, our first one, you already brought it up, was the Norristown well. And we have, when we had the main break back in last October, we ran the well. And we had to test it. We did find that we had an exceedance for the PFAS for two of the chemicals. And so we were told by public health that we can't use the well anymore until we treat it. We put a treatment plant up in there. So we're looking at doing that. That's, about $7.5 million, we're thinking, roughly all in, design, construction, engineering, oversight, legal, everything. And there's really no choice. We have no other emergency supply.
What about the,
So the interconnect, so the interconnect is only an emergency interconnect. And we're not allowed to use it, and it's 1 million gallons a day for a certain amount of time. We can't always use it. And we want to have our own water. We think it's better to have our own.
What is the yield of that well?
It's about 1.2 million a day. It's the same yield out of this one. And so
And also, there's pressure issues on that side of town that the well takes care of. So as you're going up into Bosra, places like Stockhouse Road, in those areas, it's very hard to supply at the right pressures without the well being on from that interconnect that comes all the way from the Mohegan side.
with the interconnect, if we were gonna rely on the interconnect, and we actually looked at this, we were doing some preliminary engineering thoughts about what to do about the well. We would have to put in a booster station down there as well, because their pressure bumps up against ours. And so we can't push past that. It's about 3 hours a day where we can get water without a booster.
And I think you might have missed that one bullet though. It's a 70% grant. So that's why it's very cost effective to do it now. That's unheard of, well, you also got to put lead and copper at that levels, but it's typically been 6 to 30% is what we've been seeing these projects. It's critical to the state to do this. We're getting 70%.
This comes under the emerging development funding. It's a little bit. It's still under SRF, but it's a different pot of money.
and this is a better option than reactivating here.
To reactivate those, we'd have to still put in treatment up there. We looked at all sorts of different things. We looked at the possibility of maybe going deeper. Like redigging the well, going deeper, but we actually think that would just have the same problem.
Yeah.
The PFAS is in the water and we can't look at that. We did run the well for about 3 weeks to test it every week to see if we just kept running it, if the PFAS would go down. And that didn't really help.
So knowing that PFAS is man-made, if you find the responsible party is found, who's contaminated the well?
This is a little different than, say, wastewater because it's in the groundwater.
Right.
So
But still,
it would be so hard to trace it back. It's not in the river.
it's not in the room.
It's not in the river. The well
It has to
is
be.
not the well is not under surface water.
Do you know what the drawdown is of that well?
No, we haven't done a huge test like
No, I
that.
was just wondering, because there's the class action suit.
Where's it coming from?
Not.
So then we were opted back in. So
Okay. Doing this, does it prevent us from going after a responsible party if a responsible party is found? Or if the manufacturers is?
we may get some settlement money from this.
Okay.
And there's more than one now. So Tyco, 3M, I think we have five now that
So
huge companies.
it probably would be a lot, but even if you got 10,000, 20,000, use towards that 30%.
Yes.
No, it's cost effective then to do.
It also gives us another supply of water in case there's a drought.
And that's not, those aren't shabby numbers either. 1.2 million.
So it just came through today through AWWA. There's legislation going out to put more responsibility on the manufacturers versus the recipients.
Okay.
And Chris is working with our lobbyists to put together a letter for Joe Courtney and others.
And it's gonna be activated carbon?
Probably, or some technology similar to that.
The 7.5 is the total cost, or is that our 30%?
That's total all in.
So I was.
And that's, really a rough, pretty rough.
Conservative number.
The resolution says 3.7.
So I think that's the
This
next.
is the council. No, that's the next.
So it's three
This
resolutions.
one was,
Now, all the PFAS requirement, has that been settled? Is that gonna go down again? Is that, ha 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 ha? Don't ask that question.
so that's, there's a disconnect between the EPA and the state right now. So, we're over the 10, it's 10 is what it is for the one we hit at, and we're at 14. We're not really high. We're at 14.
Okay, but this technology is gonna get us down to what, 9.5 or 1, or it's probably gonna be way below 10?
Yes,
So if it changes in the future, we might be covered with this technology.
we should be covered with the technology. If it comes, depending how low it gets.
And we're not detectable in our surface water.
Yes.
So,
really not.
but if something were to change for whatever reason, our surface water, we would have piloted a system to remove it. So we have experience.
Is there a dilution factor? I mean, the
It's,
surface water was good.
We have nothing in our surface water.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, if this is simply being added to the overall supply, does that reduce the number?
You can't blend.
You can't.
If you can blend it earlier, we can't blend it before it hits somebody, before it gets to somebody.
yeah, and we have tried to use those types of arguments and it's not gonna work.
I mean, for like East Lyme is high, and they're pushing it all to tanks and mixing it with other well water, so it does blend before it gets to customers. But we don't have that option.
Okay.
Well, we could double the cost and put a tank in.
That's phase 2, and then we're down at half a part per trillion.
If they lower it that much, we're still in very good shape compared to the industry, so that's, that's where they also gotta be concerned.
Okay, thank you. We had
That's
two more, right? Moving on.
Okay, 2 more to go. So the next one is, we have a Route 2 galvanized pipe replacement. So going down Route 2, it's at the very, very end of our system, going down Route 2, right where the big apartment building is, the Stonington Arms or something. There's a really weird section of pipe. We have about 600 feet of a 3/4 inch galvanized main that sort of, it goes through that neighborhood. It goes down and back up Route 2 and doesn't connect to where it comes down Route 2. There's a 6-inch copper coming down Route 2 and then this 3/4 inch galvanized, and they don't meet. And so we want to replace the galvanized with copper and get those two to meet. There's pressure issues out there, to add some redundancy into that area. When we try to flush, it ruins the pressure out there. And around between like the 1930s to 1950s, 60s-ish, there's a company in Massachusetts that made lead-lined galvanized pipe. And there's no way to find out unless you dig it up. And so we think that, who knows, but we are in the area where there's a lot of this lead-lined galvanized pipe. So this could be, we'll find out when we dig it up. But we do want to replace that. It's in Route 2. Which is, why the cost tends to be a little bit high, it's, going down the state right away, but it's not that much pipe.
Also, it's a 70%.
Yes.
And it's and to connect those two pipes would be really helpful for that area, the pressures in that area.
Yeah, we did have concerns on fire protection with Stonington Estates when it was built.
Yeah.
And they actually had a pretty major fire there early on as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
pressures are low.
but they had to have a special system to handle that, and that didn't handle it quite as well as it should have. But this will provide more for fire departments to access that apartment complex.
And, to loop in on that dead end, because like I said, it's the very end of our system, so to get a loop out there would be helpful for water quality for everybody out there as well. So that's our second one. Any other questions on that?
That's good.
No, that's good. And then our last one is West Town Street. There's a 24-inch water main. So our main line that comes in from the plant is 30 inch and it splits to 2 24 inches. going sort of under the highway by Achabando in that area. And there was a failure out there on one of the 24s, and the problem is because of the way the right of way is, the dip and the train tracks, it's about 20 feet underground. And so the only way to really fix that line is to line it, is to do a cast in place lining. About 700 feet of lining of that pipe. And again, just to get some redundancy to fix the pipe that's not working and get the water circulating in that area. A little bit.
This one's more traditional
Right.
funding because it's not
Yeah.
lead and copper and it's not emerging
It's
contaminants.
just broken pipe. And getting some redundancy back in that system up in that area. And just the construction's a little tricky just because it's so deep, we can't do direct 20 feet down.
And the reason it wasn't fixed is because it's 20 feet down.
20 feet down.
So we have capital needs all the time. Are these expenses, once you include the, the borrowing costs and the subsidies and all of that sort of thing, are they anticipated in our budget, or is this new to the budget? And does it affect water rates, that, all that sort of thing?
So Bob, these are in our long-term capital plan.
Yeah.
And typically, we wouldn't get these type of projects funded through Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. There's a priority list, and they only fund so many projects per year.
Yeah.
With the additional money coming in, we're able to get more funding. That's why we've had all these, lead and copper and all these other projects being able to be done under this loan grant and with high grant percentage program. It's really a great opportunity to do things that we're planning and doing in that 5 to 10 year period, get them done cheaper and over time.
And when we do our cost of service studies, we use that 10-year plan. Yep. When we're forecasting our capital.
So this is not going to affect rates.
Correct. But it will get rolled into the next cost of service we do in 2 years.
Okay.
But as anything we do for capital.
Yeah.
But we don't have to adjust rates for this.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. Yeah, all right. And next we have the Greenville Dam repairs with Eric.
Evening, everyone. I'm gonna ask you to indulge me because I'm gonna geek out a little bit and talk about the history of Greenville Dam before I get into this year's construction, just because I don't know about you guys, but I find it pretty cool. So this is Greenville Dam. This is an artist depiction from 1908. This is a postcard. Don't blame me for the spelling. I don't know why they left the E off. But Greenville Dam was constructed in its original location in 1882, back to power the Shetucket Company, which was owned by William Green, hence Greenville, who also constructed the Greenville Dam. Now, I say the original location because the original dam was actually located 400 yards upstream and was constructed 50 years previously. If you drive down the street now and look over the river, you can actually see the old dam because the water is so low. Now, this is a timber crib dam. Timber crib dams were pretty popular back in the 1800s. These dams are designed to be permeable, which is, if you bring me to the next slide, which is very different from dams that are constructed today. Anything you'd see made out of masonry or concrete. This is actually a picture from when we were constructing the fish lift back in 1995. Don't let the black and white fool you. But I like this picture because it actually shows how the dam is constructed. You can see that you have timbers placed anywhere between 6 and 10 feet apart, stacked in 90-degree angles, and then filled with stone and gravel. The stone and the gravel is actually what holds the water back. Again, it's made to be permeable. The water will always be flowing through that stone. And then it's faced with these planks going across the top. The only thing those planks do is really hold that stone and gravel in place. Now, because the dam is permeable, this creates different pressures than you would see on a regular dam, primarily upward pressure. So as the water flows through the dam, it actually pushes up on all those timbers and then starts to remove the stone and the gravel. So every year we have to go in and maintain certain sections of that dam that have been removed by the power of the water coming through. Next slide, please. So that brings us to 2024. So if you remember, we weren't able to get on the dam last year because of all the high water we had. We never got that window to maintain the dam. So what that meant was this year we were looking at a lot more damage than we see in a normal construction year. So this over here on the left, you can see where this whole piece of the dam here, this is about 50 yards. There is no stone ballast left in there. This is also how we access the dam to do the rest of the maintenance. So before we could even get up on the dam and start doing work, Mattern, our partner, had to completely rebuild this section of dam, and then it allowed us to start working forward. You can see what I mean by that upward pressure. So these angled planks are actually pushed out from the water coming through the dam, and then the stone ballast follows when those planks are no longer there. You can see before the water receded this year, we already knew that we were into a little bit of trouble. You can see all of the different areas where the water is actually seeping into the dam. That's where the planks have either been completely removed or there's no stone underneath them to support those planks. This here is actually the backside of the dam. So again, similar construction on the backside of the dam as in the front side of the dam. And you can see where, again, the planking has just rotted over time, allowing even more water to seep into the dam than it's actually designed for. Next slide, please. So knowing that we would be facing more damage than we had seen in years prior, and we were not sure about how much of a window we would get this year, we teamed up with Mattern earlier than normal to come up with a plan on how we were going to attack it. We first got on the dam in July. We had a 2-week window to get on there and start repairs. That's where we made repairs to that first section I showed you. If you remember, there was no stone or anything left. So this was that first section completely repaired. And unfortunately, as soon as we got that done, water came back up, and it was about another month before we could get back on the dam. In August, the water finally receded again, and we went to work on the rest of the dam. So what we did was the dam is constructed of 3 tiers, the lowest tier, the middle tier, and the upper tier. Most of the damage was to that middle tier, but it also meant that we had to work as we went to be able to drive. The most of the damage was actually down by where the fish lift is, when we accessed the dam from the other side. So we actually had to replace a whole lot of the dam just to get to the area that was most damaged. The area that is most damaged is this area right in here. So I like this picture because it shows exactly what we're doing here. So you can see some of the old timbers left where we've completely cut it out and gone in with all new timbers. In this case, as we really never know how much damage is underneath until we pull it apart. In this case, we actually had to replace all 3 tiers of that middle tier of the dam in order to backfill it with stone. So all told, we've been at it for about 6 weeks now. We have made it all the way back to the other side of the dam. So you can see where we've made our way all the way back. We are now on the uppermost tier of the dam and filling in that last part. And then if you'll take me to the last slide. So this is the dam after all of our work. I took this today. And you can see that they're still working a little bit down there. As soon as they finish with this section up here, we're going to replace the uppermost.
That's okay.
Sorry, I touched it. That's my fault. The uppermost part of the dam here, that should take us about another 3 days. And then we're hoping to be off the dam by the end of the week. With the rain coming, we expect that this will end our window for this year. But a very, very productive year for us, which was needed given the state of the dam that we worked on.
What's the dollar figure on that?
So all told, we will probably land right at budget, which was about 250 grand. So normally we spend about 150 grand a year. This year, given the damage that we knew we were going to see, we did increase it to about 250. And based on the invoices we've seen to date, we're probably going to come right in at that figure. What's that? No, hopefully by the end of this week. We've got rain coming in starting, what's today? Starting Thursday night. And what we expect is that rain will bring the water level up and we won't get back on.
We can talk about being careful about any public exposure to this, but would there be potentially an opportunity to do something with the day tomorrow or Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's probably.
Okay, it's an urgent matter that would maybe gives an opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay,
Any other questions?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't mean to be picky, but the purpose of the dam is for the hydro facility that's there. Is that right? That's the only reason, okay? So we put that on the line, so that's sort of an avoided cost, is basically for the, so the power we generate is power that we don't have to buy, so it's an avoided cost. So the power that we avoid compared to the repair costs every year for the dam, that's what I talked about, it's kind of a break even.
No, so when we did a pretty good assessment on this, I want to say 6-7 years ago. The avoided cost that we get from all of our hydros is somewhere between 600,000 and 700,000. Keep the avoided cost we get just from Second Street alone is in the area of 2, but keep in mind, this dam actually powers both Second Street and 10th Street. I don't remember the 10th Street number right off the top of my head, but all told, we still end up in a net positive.
So then the other obvious dumb question is, if you had to replace this with a more durable dam, is there anybody who would come in and pay for that? Or help us pay for it? Or is that just so expensive it's not even worth talking about?
Well, Chris may be able to talk about this better than I can, but my understanding is we did actually look at going in with a concrete dam many years ago. Interestingly enough, the river bottom of the Shetucket does not really allow for it. So if any of you remember the Haditha Dam in Iraq and how it started to sink after we rebuilt it, very similar structure here. So if we were to put concrete in the location of this, the riverbed wouldn't support it, and ultimately the dam would fail.
You have to go down to bedrock?
Yeah, and so that would not be cost effective. We looked at versus, why don't we just cover the whole thing with concrete as is? Because of those forces that Eric talks about when it leaks through the dam, it's not gonna work and it will, the concrete won't last. And then we talked about making, taking it out and even doing sections at a time, replaced with the concrete dam. And once again, because water flowing over the top, the hydraulic pressures in the soft bedding at the bottom, that dam would not be safe and endurable for any length of time. And we looked at a number of different dam experts on that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments?
It's amazing. We have a dam constructed like that that's been operating for 116 years.
It's the history of this is, I just find it fascinating, right? So our relationship with this dam didn't really start until 1926 when we first purchased the plots of land from the Atlantic Carbon Corporation and then purchased water rights from Norwich Water Power Company in order to build Second Street Second Street hydro plant. Yeah. Then in the 1960s, we purchased the whole thing, built the 10th Street hydro plant, and we've been maintaining the dam ever since.
First dam failed in a hurricane upstream. And this one, when we have high water like Sandy, Irene, when I've been here, it's just a ripple. You can't even tell it's a dam there. It's flowing like a river over the top of it. It's amazing that works. Yeah. There's also flash boards, which are wooden planks held up by pipes that.
They're getting hard to tell from. I keep doing it, but you can kind of make them out right there. There's just some remnants of them left.
But in the big storms, those are meant to fail over, and also to relieve some of that flooding that can happen because of that extra height of dam.
Tom Palmer mentioned that this is one of a handful left in the United States.
Yeah, there's not, again, right, 1800s technology, there's not many of these left. Again, it's just another cool piece of history here in Norwich. So we are a bit unique.
Tell somebody you're gonna build a dam using timbers with rocks in between, and it'll last for 116 years. You tell them crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right,
Okay.
thanks everyone.
Thanks, Eric. All right, and lastly, we have our favorite discussion typically is the wastewater plant upgrade. Brad, how do you pronounce your last name?
Silent H, just Ross.
Okay, that's easy. I can do that.
Yeah.
And Matt is our newest engineer who we hired on basically to manage this project and do other things. But managing this project is why we hired Matt on, and he's been, managing it right from pretty much the start of construction.
Yeah, nice to meet you all, and apologies for the tardiness. We were actually offering a tour of the construction site this evening, so. Yeah, you can advance. So I think you're probably gonna ask yourself, these pictures probably don't change month to month, but I promise you there is progress, so, they're kind of following from the format Larry had established. Aerial shot from yesterday, just looking north, so this is really the entire treatment plant site. You're kind of where I sit most of the day, was just at the bottom of the picture. We can advance, we'll see the same view, looking south toward the Thames where the plant discharges to. If you want to dive in a little further to the next slide, one of the important drivers for the project is to be able to formally close the landfill at the property. So this is the very northern or tip end of Hollyhock Island. Again, currently there's a lot of lead contaminated soils being treated at the site and then exported to the landfill along with construction debris. So there, seeing the look ahead, they're kind of nearing the completion of the first two phases of that work as excavation for most of the ongoing activities finishes. If you advance to the next slide, we're kind of working through as much of the process flow as we can see. So this picture probably hasn't changed very much. Our consultant, CDM Smith, has generated a variety of structural repairs. Basically, the contractor had to come in, do a lot of mechanical demolition to rip out the old equipment and give the consultant an opportunity to get eyes on the tank, which they didn't have an opportunity to do during design. So there's a series of repairs that will be coming to this tank before any new work really happens. Construction joints, expansion joints along the floors and walls. And there is some, transmission of wastewater from the adjacent tank to this one that will need to be taken care of. Next slide. This is just a second view looking toward the north again. We can advance again. Really the critical path for the schedule is building these 3 new clarifiers. They're happening in 2 locations of the site, and that really clears the way so existing clarifiers can be demolished for significant new infrastructure at the head end of the plant. If you advance another slide, so you'll actually see some real work happening here. So the center well for the clarifiers being formed, that's the steel at the center of the excavation. And then there's 3 pipes that you'll see. They're really going to be encased beneath the clarifier, bringing effluent from the aeration tanks, and then discharging different sludge flows to waste and to return to the head of the aeration basins. And the next slide, actually, we had our first concrete pour this morning. So these 2 smaller pipes in the kind of the foreground of the photo were poured this morning.
Matt, just for their perspective, how deep and how big a diameter are we talking?
Yeah, so the new clarifier, this is the excavation is beyond 90 feet. The new clarifier itself will have a 90-foot diameter. This vertical dimension here is close to 20 feet. So, one of the reasons why you probably see slow progress is there's been a lot of significant heavy civil earthwork type activities to be able to put the contractor in a position to actually build something new. So, these steel piles were driven in from grade this summer. You probably saw that progress. And then this concrete ring around the upper perimeter is actually it's a sacrificial component, but really just stabilizing that sheeting from caving in because that sheeting is supporting a lot of earth outside the excavation. I think if you advance to the next slide, you'll see there's a very significant complex. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice, but this is, again, 2 new 90-foot secondary clarifiers, as well as a common pump station for sludge flows.
Yeah, you had a question here.
What are those yellow buckets covering?
Oh, so,
Back ones?
yeah. And so that's the rebar that's kind of protruding from, the pile interface, so I'm sure you know, everything is being built on essentially garbage, there's no bearing capacity for, the magnitude of the structures that are being constructed, so, what's been happening over the past 5 months, really since May, the subcontractor just demobilized this week, actually, was installing close to 900 auger-driven cast-in-place piles to facilitate a lot of the first phases of the work. So the contractor is very safety conscious, and the buckets are really just there for worker protection because there's a lot of opportunity to hurt yourself working around large steel members protruding out of the earth. You can advance probably one more slide. So this just gives you a perspective. I mean, this is, kind of one of the neat aspects of the project is there's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different approaches being used to support the sheeting. In this case, they had actually driven, steel tiebacks into the soil outside of the sheeting. So this is again, close to 20 feet deep. It's much different if you actually get eyes on it in person. But they are essentially treating a significant amount of lead contaminated soil in this location. It's very slow. It's treated in situ. It needs to be sampled to verify that it's been adequately treated, and then they're periodically batching material into the landfill for closure. And then I think there's one more photo just of an aerial from yesterday of that entire complex. It's very large. Continuing on to the next slide. So we're ultimately going to have a new effluent pump station, essentially a combination of increasing capacity at the plant combined with increasing elevations, water surface elevations in the receiving water, so the Yantic or Thames River, necessitates that sometimes we won't be able to discharge our effluent by gravity. We'll actually have to pump it. So one of the new structures early in the project is adjacent to our existing chlorine contact tanks, but is a new effluent pump station for the plant. I could give probably
That reinforcement bar, they're going to be pouring concrete there. The concrete's going to be that thick.
So there's it's a little deceiving. I mean, there's been I'll say a snag in approving the concrete mix design for the project. That's put the contractors reinforcing sub into a position where they're installing. I mean, these holes are full of steel. They're at the point actually as of yesterday where they're essentially done tying steel. They need to come in and pour the base slabs and be able to continue working upwards. So,
but what I'm seeing there is a base plus walls.
What you're seeing is the reinforcing for the base slab, and then actually the reinforcing steel for walls that will come vertically.
You're not pouring at 12 feet thick.
No.
That'd be a lot of concrete.
It would. If you talk to the contractor, they say this is a lot of steel, but yeah, that's an argument you hear every project. So maybe the next slide. So one of the other, big drivers is the transition in how we're managing sludge at the facility. Will no longer be thickening and digesting that sludge. Will essentially be only thickening and then storing it for off-site disposal. This you see on the Yantic side of the river, 3 compartments. There'll be 3 independent storage tank. On the left of this view is a pump gallery to, there's some equipment to mix the sludge there, and then ultimately pump it to a hauler for export to hopefully the MDC. That's an RFP we'll be needing to put out early next year to transition how we're managing that waste stream. And maybe the next slide, so we jump into So this is just another view of the same structure kind of from ground level. Again, you can continue. I guess a second view and look ahead. So I tried to limit this to 12 months. It's kind of very high level and kind of works through the process flow of the plan if you think that way like I do. So for site work, again, they're nearing completion of the first 2 phases of the landfill closure because they'll be done excavating for a period of time. That work will cease before the end of the year, and then you won't see a lot of changes in the landfill until down the road. There is a small dewatering area our collection systems crew uses to discharge materials from our sewer mains in our collection system. That's being upgraded as part of the project, and that'll be happening second quarter next year. The admin lab building, this has been significantly delayed. There's one utility kind of still living in that building. It's a fiber optic system for plant communications. There's a whole saga about that could go into. But we are nearing, we basically pivoted to an alternate technology. And ideally between, I'll say Halloween and Thanksgiving, we'll be in a position to begin demolishing that building and then constructing the new admin and lab. It's kind of a common space. Admin sitting on the existing foundation, lab entirely new. Primary settling tanks. There's a sequencing complication where essentially our new primary settling tanks are going to have to be upgraded, placed into service before our new headworks is available. So there's some interim work we're doing to protect that new equipment during this warranty period until the headworks can be built. And that work on the primary tanks will begin really after the first of the year. One tank is currently out of service as we speak. And then we've negotiated with the contractor an extended demonstration period. They were initially going to kind of immediately proceed to the second tank because of some reservations we have about the timing of that work and the lack of the new headworks. They're giving us a 3-month grace period. We'll be able to operate the first new tank and work with the manufacturer for kind of post-startup inspection time to really make sure we're not doing anything to damage that equipment in the absence of the new headworks. Aeration tank 2, again, is really just going to proceed over the next year through, basically you got to fix the concrete, you got to build new walls to create the different biological zones that we're looking to build to remove nitrogen, something that the plant currently can't do. And then ultimately getting all of our process equipment in there for testing and commissioning by hopefully about a year from now. The secondary settling tanks we spoke about, much of the concrete work will be beginning at that large clarifier 2 as early as the end of this week with the base slab. And the other 2 tanks as soil treatment and excavation continues. One more slide. That's the 3 and 4 complex we spoke about. I can talk more about it if you want me to. Sludge handling, starting Monday, we're working with the manufacturer. They're basically kind of come out and do a phased rehabilitation of our rotor drum thickener that we currently use and will continue to use for thickening of waste activated sludge. And then down the road, kind of as the thickened sludge storage tanks come online and we transition our sludge hauling, our belt filter press will go away. So that's how these 2 kind of activities line up with one another. And then the effluent pump station, it's a little bit ahead of the game in my mind, but it will be hopefully available, not seeing flow. We'll still be discharging through our chlorine contact tank a year from now, but it will be largely constructed by then. So, any questions?
Things are going pretty well then. Sounds.
Yeah, I think for the most part, there's been a couple of hangups with concrete and with fiber optic, but we are working through this.
Where's the concrete coming from?
So the pipe encasements and say like duct bank, concrete, non-structural, that the pour we had today, that's Kobe Luck. Kobe Luck was unable to meet, design requirements, specifically shrinkage for the new actual structures. So the contractors pivoted to Tilcon. Even Tilcon had to pursue an independent lab in Ohio. The results we were expecting today, optimistically, for approval and concrete placement beginning the end of this week, because they're really ready to pour. Hopefully a month from now, you're seeing photos of new concrete in those holes and more concealed steel.
So you mentioned in a couple of the early slides, how you were essentially building on top of garbage.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen old pictures of Hollyhock Island that it's maybe 25% of what Hollyhock Island is now. And the rest, the dump certainly, and other land didn't exist. I mean, it's not dirt, and rock and ledge, it's garbage.
It's garbage.
Is the entire, was there ever a point when there was no Hollyhock Island? Is it all garbage or?
No, I mean, I think there's some interesting, actually, if you go to our consultants' basis of design report for the project, they have kind of a static time lapse from like 1890 to 1970 of just USGS maps, and you can physically see the size of the island growing decade by decade.
Yeah.
My understanding is 1890, it was, kind of I guess sort of a sandberm in the river. The city began using it as an ash landfill initially, and then ultimately more as like a municipal kind of modern like garbage waste. So I think also as you progress kind of from the marina end north, you move kind of away from the ash and to where we're working into garbage.
The marina actually was a cold storage facility, COAL storage facility. For a long time, it was Chapel Coal, and they used to store their coal there and deliver it to various houses that would burn, coal for heat and stuff.
Okay.
They didn't see a lot of garbage when they did the transportation center. They did not, yeah. It was filled, but it wasn't garbage, it wasn't garbage, yeah.
Is there any reactive soils around there? The film showed, did they check to see if it was reactive with the concrete or the steel? Do you know?
I don't believe so. I mean, the steel would be concealed ultimately, but the steel's not going to be exposed to anything other than the concrete that's around it. I don't think there's anything unique about the concrete mix design there's nothing corrosive per se about the soil. It's just more, there's heavy metals, and, VOC type contaminants.
So given the proximity of the new project versus the old project, is there going to be a period of time where the old project has to be shut down and the new one isn't operating yet, and we're just going to have to sort of dump the effluent into the river, or is that?
You mean the old facility and the new facility?
Yeah.
No, not at all. The entire charge, both by CDM and the contractor, is maintaining continuous operation of the facility. Okay. DEEP is adamant that, we meet our permit limits throughout the project. We are putting in place other provisions to make that happen.
Okay.
No.
Okay, build new, commission, get online, demo old, and that's, as he goes around the plant, that's making it much white. If you're building a new plant from scratch, it could happen a lot faster and easier.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Matt?
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Matt, nice to meet you. All righty, that brings us to agenda item 9. We have 5 votes to go through tonight based on the presentations and discussions we've had over the last several weeks. In tonight's discussions, and as always for each of these, I'll ask for a first and a second, and then there'll be discussion, if any, and then a vote. All right, so the first one is a vote on the proposed new sewer rates. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, thanks, Bill.
No second.
I'm second. Okay, I have first and a second. Is there any discussion on the Proposed new sewer rates. All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, all those opposed say nay.
All right.
Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. All right, secondly, we have a vote on vote efficiency charge that was discussed. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed rates.
Yep, I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sean. I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion on the energy efficiency charge?
Is there any way it could be lowered?
So this one here is the charge we add for doing rebates, lighting rebates. This is the efficiency charge. This is not, this is not the rate, yeah. Not the disconnect, connect.
No discussion. Coffee is involved. All right, no discussion. All right. And all that being said and unsaid, all those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay.
All right.
Abstention. All right, I heard at least 4, so the motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have a vote on the West Main Street Water Project Resolution, which we heard about this evening. I will entertain a motion. All right, thank you, Bill.
No second.
Second by Bob. Okay, is there any discussion on the resolution? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay. All right, are there any abstentions? All right, I heard at least 4, so that motion carries as well. All right. Oh, and now our favorite, the PFAS well site project resolution. All right, I'll entertain a motion. For that. Bill?
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Bob. Is there any discussion? I think we had a good presentation on that tonight. That was good, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way regulations go. They're always increasing or getting more involved. All right, any additional discussion on that resolution? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? At least 3. So I will say the motion carries. All right, and lastly, the Route 2 galvanized pipe project resolution that we're hoping is not lead line galvanized pipe. Is that right? Okay, that will say. All right, I'll entertain the motion. Robert. Second. Thank you, Bill. All right, is there any discussion on the Route 2 galvanized pipe project resolution? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those and torn over. Okay, all right.
So we not voting on the shut off?
So that is a staff discussion, so we can open that discussion back up if you'd like after we're done with these.
Okay, the motion carries. That's all I had to say with the motion carries.
On those 3 projects, we do need council approval. So what I'll do is I'll bring that to the city council at the next council meeting. We will have a first reading. It will refer to the commission on the city plan with those 3. All these are clearly consistent with the city plan, so I don't expect anything there. And then it'll go for the second reading, public hearing to the council. So sometime in the November timeframe, these will be ready for approval for construction projects.
Where do they stand relative to the, what's the, that qualification? They have to be, no, well, they have to be,
They're all below the BLA threshold. All below the BLA.
okay.
Small dollars.
Okay. All right, well, That brings us to agenda item 10, which is executive session. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Thank you, Robert. Is there any discussion about going into executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
It's 5, so the motion carries and we are in executive session. Chris, would you like to stay behind?
Tonight, I just need Jeff, Steve, and Chris.
Okay.
Well, you can hang for the coming out of the session.
Thank
You
you very
gotta
much.
text me or.
Yeah.
I'll check on that.
And it is my duty to say, for the record, before I turn the mic off here, so
What's the?
I have to say, we're going into executive session. Going into executive session to discuss confidential trade secrets and commercially valuable confidential proprietary information. Not subject to inspection or public disclosure pursuant to section 1, 2, 10, 5 and 7, 232A of the Connecticut General Statutes. This information is commercially valuable, confidential, proprietary, and subject to public disclosure pursuant to Public Act number 98-212, and also to discuss personnel matters of an employee or employees and or a public official pursuant to Chapter 14, Section 1206 of the Connecticut General Statutes. And with that, we are in executive session.
I will stop the recording. I'm just gonna lock the meeting.